I do. With this ring, I thee wed.
I am so sorry, my love. Why, Father? Please tell me. I cannot. Just know I am sorry.
The wedding hall glittered with gold lights, but Amara Bennett felt as if she were walking toward a grave. Outside the estate, black SUVs stood in perfect lines. Armed men guarded every entrance. Guests whispered behind expensive smiles, careful not to look too long at the tall man waiting at the altar. Dante Moretti, the most feared man in the city. Amara stood at the entrance in her white wedding dress, her fingers trembling around the bouquet. Beside her, her father, Samuel, looked broken. "Please," he whispered. "If you refuse, they'll take your brother too." Amara's eyes filled with tears. She had already begged him to find another way. She had begged the debt collectors. She had even begged Dante. Nothing had changed. Her brother's life was now the price of her obedience. The music began. Amara took her first step, then another. Every step toward Dante felt like losing another piece of herself. When she finally reached him, she lifted her eyes. Dante expected fear. Everyone feared him. But beneath Amara's tears was something else. Defiance. Her chin remained raised. For the briefest moment, Dante's cold expression changed. He noticed. The ceremony continued. Amara heard the words, felt the ring slide onto her finger, and repeated vows that no part of her heart accepted. Then the final words were spoken. She was married. There was applause. Amara heard none of it. Within minutes, Dante's men surrounded her. Her father was pulled into an embrace that felt more like a goodbye. Samuel kissed her forehead, unable to meet her eyes. "Be strong," he whispered. Then Dante took her hand. His grip was firm, but not painful. The mansion was larger than anything Amara had ever imagined. Tall iron gates closed behind their cars, sealing her inside a world she did not understand. That night, Dante stood near the bedroom window, his face unreadable. "You will have everything you need," he said. Amara stared at him. "But there are rules." She said nothing. "Never enter my private office. Never go below the east wing. And never ask about my past." He turned toward the door. Amara thought he was leaving. Then, from somewhere beneath the mansion, a faint sound reached her. A woman crying. Amara froze. The sound came again. She quietly stepped into the hallway. She had barely reached the staircase when a deep voice came from behind her. "Go back to your room." Amara turned. Dante stood in the darkness. For the first time, the feared mafia boss did not look angry. He looked terrified. Morning came quietly to Dante Moretti's mansion, but Amara did not feel safe. She stood beside the enormous bedroom window, watching armed guards move through the gardens below. Black cars arrived and left through the iron gates. Men in dark suits and earpieces stood at every corner. There was no lock on her bedroom door. She did not need one. The entire mansion was a cage. But before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring you more emotional stories like this one. At breakfast, Amara sat alone at the long dining table. She had barely touched her food when Dante entered. He placed a folder beside his plate and began reading without looking at her. "You always eat this little?" he asked. Amara looked up. "You always watch your prisoners eat?" His eyes slowly lifted. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, surprisingly, Dante almost smiled. "You're not a prisoner." "Then why can't I leave?" The smile disappeared. Before he could answer, an elderly housekeeper hurried into the room. Her hands trembled as she carried a tray. "Mr. Moretti, I'm sorry. My grandson." Dante stopped her. "How much?" She froze. "The hospital bill," he said. She quietly told him the amount. Dante nodded toward Marcus. "Pay it." Amara stared. The woman's eyes filled with tears. She thanked him repeatedly before leaving. Amara watched Dante carefully. "You help people?" Dante returned to his papers. "Not everyone." That answer stayed in her mind. Later, Amara walked through the garden. She noticed Dante kneeling beside two frightened children near the gate. One had scraped his knee. The terrifying man everyone feared gently cleaned the wound himself. Then a guard mentioned something about Dante's father. Dante's face changed instantly. The warmth vanished. His voice became cold enough to silence everyone around him. Amara stepped back, watching from a distance. Whatever had happened in his past, it was still alive inside him. Days passed. Then the headaches began. At first, they were small. Then came the dizziness. One afternoon, while walking through the garden, Amara suddenly lost her balance. The world tilted. She heard Marcus calling her name. Then everything went black. When she opened her eyes, Dante was beside her. His hand was gripping hers tightly. "Call the doctor," he ordered. Amara tried to sit up. "Are you fine?" "No, you're not." His voice cracked. That frightened her more than the illness. Later, while Dante searched through her handbag for her medical papers, a small report slipped onto the floor. He picked it up. His eyes moved across the page. Then his face went completely pale. For the first time since Amara had met him, Dante Moretti looked truly afraid. And Amara saw the medical term that had stolen the color from his face. The private hospital smelled of medicine and cold air. Amara lay beneath a white sheet while Dr. Elias Carter studied the latest test results. Blood samples, scans, and reports covered the table beside him. Dante stood near the window. He had barely spoken since they arrived. Finally, Dr. Elias lowered the papers. "There are signs of long-term exposure to something harmful," he said carefully. "But I can't identify what it is." Amara's heart sank. "Poison? Possibly." Dante turned sharply. "Possibly isn't good enough." Dr. Elias looked at him. "I need more tests." Dante nodded, but his jaw remained tight. Outside the room, he pulled Marcus aside. "Check everyone who has entered this house since she arrived." Marcus frowned. Everyone. "And if you find something?" Dante's eyes hardened. "Bring it to me." Amara heard enough from behind the half-open door to understand one thing. Dante believed someone was trying to hurt her. The journey home was silent. That evening, Amara tried to walk upstairs alone. Halfway up, her vision blurred. She grabbed the railing. "I can do it," she whispered. Dante appeared behind her.
"No."
Before she could protest, he lifted her into his arms. Amara stared at him in surprise. "You don't have to carry me." "I know." His voice was quiet. "But I'm going to." For the first time, she felt the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. It was strangely fast. Dante Moretti was afraid. Not for himself. For her. He placed her gently on the bed and pulled the blanket over her. Amara watched him. "Why do you care so much?" His eyes met hers. "I don't know how to answer that." Then he walked away. The next morning, Dr. Elias returned to the mansion. He had another report in his hand. His expression was different this time. "There's something I need to tell you." Dante stood beside the desk. "What?" Dr. Elias looked at Amara. "Your symptoms are very similar to another case I studied years ago." Amara felt a chill move through her. Who was she? Dr. Elias went silent. "Doctor?" He lowered his eyes. "I can't tell you." "Why?" He looked toward Dante. For one brief moment, the two men exchanged a look that Amara could not understand. That night, unable to sleep, Amara entered Dante's private study. She searched through the old shelves until a loose photograph slipped from a hidden drawer. She picked it up. Her breath caught. The woman in the photograph looked almost exactly like her. Amara turned it over. A date was written on the back, and beneath it were 4 words. "Died 12 years ago." Amara stood alone in Dante's private study, staring at the photograph she had found the night before. The woman in it was Isabella Moretti. But the resemblance was impossible to ignore. The same dark eyes. The same soft features. Even the small mark near her left eyebrow looked strangely familiar. Amara's fingers trembled as she searched through the old files hidden behind the bookshelves. Medical reports. Hospital records. Photographs. Then she found Isabella's final medical report. The symptoms were almost identical to hers. Amara's breathing became shallow. She was sick too. A sound came from behind her. She turned. Dante stood in the doorway. His eyes moved from Amara to the open files. For several seconds, neither spoke. You told me not to ask about your past, Amara said. You never told me you had a wife. Dante slowly entered the room. Her name was Isabella. What happened to her? His face tightened. She died. From the same illness I have? Dante stopped. That silence was enough. Amara's eyes filled with tears. Was she poisoned? Dante looked away. She was murdered. The words seemed to drain the air from the room. Who killed her? I don't know. You expect me to believe that? Dante's jaw tightened. I spent years trying to find out. Amara looked at the files. She was investigating your organization. Dante said nothing. She found something. Yes. What? His eyes met hers. She discovered someone inside my empire was doing things I never authorized. Amara stepped back. And you married me because of my father's debt? Dante remained silent for a moment. It gave me a reason to bring you here. Amara's heart sank. A reason? To keep you protected. She stared at him. Then her eyes moved back to Isabella's photograph. Suddenly, everything felt different. The marriage, the mansion, the rules, the illness. She looked at Dante with tears in her eyes. Did you choose me because I look like her? His expression changed. Amara, answer me. Dante took a step toward her. I never wanted you to become another Isabella. But that was not the answer she needed. That night, Amara left the mansion alone. She drove to a quiet cemetery where Isabella's grave stood beneath an old tree. Amara knelt beside the stone, tears falling silently. I'm sorry, she whispered. Her phone suddenly vibrated. Unknown number. She opened the message. A photograph appeared. It was Amara sleeping inside Dante's mansion. Someone had taken it from inside her bedroom. Her blood ran cold. A second message appeared beneath the photograph. You were never supposed to survive this marriage. Amara slowly looked toward the dark trees behind her. Someone was watching. Rain hammered against the windows that evening as Amara sat alone in the dining room. Mrs. Evelyn placed a cup of tea beside her. You should drink this, she said gently. It may help you sleep. Amara lifted the cup. She took one sip, then another. Within minutes, the room began to spin. Her fingers loosened around the cup. Help! The cup crashed onto the floor. Amara fell from her chair. When Dante reached her, her skin was cold and her breathing was weak. Amara, his voice shook the entire room. Marcus rushed forward. Call Dr. Elias. Dante looked at the broken cup. Lock the gates. Nobody leaves. The mansion was sealed within minutes. Dr. Elias arrived and examined the cup and the remaining tea. His expression darkened. This wasn't an ordinary reaction. Dante stared at him. What are you saying? Something was added. Silence filled the room. Dante turned toward Marcus. Search everyone. The investigation began immediately. Servants were questioned. Cameras were checked. Every kitchen worker was searched. Then Marcus found something disturbing. A bottle containing traces of the same substance had been discovered inside Dr. Elias's medical bag. Dante's eyes hardened. Doctor. Elias looked stunned. That isn't mine. Before Dante could respond, Victor Moretti entered the room. He looked concerned. Dante, you can't keep ignoring the obvious. Amara, still weak, watched him carefully. Victor looked directly at Dante. She arrived here and suddenly became sick. Now your doctor has the poison in his bag. His voice was calm. The hidden door opened with a heavy click. Amara stepped into the underground laboratory and stopped breathing. Rows of old medical equipment filled the room. Dust-covered glass containers and metal tables. Behind one wall stood shelves packed with files, each marked with names, dates, and numbers. Dr. Elias walked beside her, his face pale. This place was supposed to be destroyed. Amara looked at Dante. You knew about this. Dante said nothing. Her voice shook. Tell me the truth. For a long moment, Dante stared at the floor. Then he finally spoke. My father built this operation. Amara's eyes widened. Operation? A medical program, Dante said. They tested experimental drugs on people who had no power to fight back. Amara stepped away from him. And you continued it?
No.
Dante's voice broke through the silence. I inherited it. I tried to shut it down. Marcus looked toward the files. But someone kept it running. Dante's eyes moved toward Victor's name on an old document. Victor. Amara looked at him in disbelief. Isabella found out? Dante nodded. She discovered what they were doing. She collected evidence. She was going to expose everyone. His voice became quieter. Then she died. Amara's eyes filled with tears. You said you didn't know who killed her. I didn't. Dante looked at the old laboratory. But I knew someone inside my organization was responsible. He explained how he had spent years pretending to remain the same ruthless boss while secretly destroying the operation from within. Amara listened, but every word made her heart hurt more. Then Dr. Elias pulled a file from the shelf. His hands were trembling. Dante. Amara stepped closer. Her name was written across the cover. Amara Bennett.
She stared at it. No.
Elias opened the file. Inside was an old photograph of her mother. Amara covered her mouth. That's my mother. Dante lowered his eyes. She was one of the early patients. Amara turned toward him. You knew? I discovered it after the wedding. Then why did you marry me? Dante took a slow breath. Because I believed the people who hunted the survivors were still looking. Amara's tears finally fell. So, I wasn't your wife. You were someone I needed to protect. Her face crumpled. Before she could answer, the laboratory doors suddenly slammed open. Victor entered with armed men behind him. He smiled coldly. I'm afraid protection won't matter anymore. Dante stepped in front of Amara. Victor raised his weapon. It's over, Dante. You've lost control of your empire. Gunshots shattered the silence of Dante's mansion. Amara ducked behind a marble pillar as armed men stormed through the halls. Glass exploded from the windows. Servants screamed and ran for cover. Dante grabbed Amara's hand. Stay behind me. I can't. You don't have a choice. Marcus appeared at the end of the corridor. Dante. The west entrance is gone. Another gunshot thundered. Dante looked toward the underground laboratory. We can't leave the evidence. Amara stared at him. People are shooting at us, and you're worried about files? Those files can expose Victor. They can save every person he hurt. Before Amara could answer, Marcus pushed them toward the side exit. A bullet struck him. He collapsed against the wall. Marcus. Dante caught him before he hit the floor. Get him out. Dante ordered. Amara tried to help, but Victor appeared at the opposite end of the hallway. He smiled. You still don't understand, Amara. Dante raised his weapon. Stay away from her. Victor laughed. Ask your husband when he first learned about your condition. Amara froze.
She looked at Dante.
What is he talking about? Dante's silence was enough. Victor continued. He knew you might become sick before he married you. Amara's face went white. Dante. I was trying to protect you. You knew. I didn't know how far it would go. Her eyes filled with tears. You married me knowing I could die. Dante stepped closer. I needed to keep you where I could protect you. You used me.
No.
You used me to draw them out. Dante reached for her. Amara stepped back. Don't touch me. The words broke something inside him. Hours later, Amara left the mansion alone. Rain poured over the windshield as she drove toward her father's old house. She kept seeing Dante's face. His fear. His lies. His silence. She believed leaving him was the only way she could survive. But when she reached the house, Dr. Elias was waiting outside. Amara stopped. What are you doing here? His face was pale. I followed you because you need to know something. She slowly stepped closer. What? Elias held the medical report in his hand. The illness has progressed faster than we expected. Amara stared at him. How long? He swallowed hard. Without treatment, his voice broke. You may only have weeks. Amara covered her mouth. Then Elias looked back at the file. There is one thing we still have. What? The antidote. His eyes lifted. But Victor has the formula, and he's about to destroy the evidence. Rain tapped against the windows of her father's old house as Amara sat beside the fireplace, staring at the medical report in her hands.
Weeks.
That was all the doctor had given her. Dr. Elias placed another folder on the table. You need to see this. Amara opened it. Inside were bank documents, property papers, and legal records. Her eyes widened. These businesses, they're in my name. Elias nodded. Dante transferred them months ago. Amara stared at the papers. Why? A voice came from the doorway. Because I didn't know how to protect you any other way. Amara turned. Dante stood there, soaked from the rain. For a moment, neither moved. You followed me? I needed to make sure you were safe. You should have told me the truth. I know. His voice was quiet. I thought if you knew everything, you'd become a target. Amara looked away. You made me one anyway. Dante lowered his eyes. I know. That simple admission broke through her anger. For the first time, she saw no power in him. Only regret. Marcus entered carrying a small metal box. We found this in Isabella's old archive. Inside were photographs, handwritten notes, and copies of medical records. Elias spread them across the table. One document caught Amara's attention. A list of patients. Her name was there. Beside it was another name. Victor Moretti. Amara's breathing stopped. Elias found another file. This proves Victor continued the experiments after Dante shut them down. Then he found something worse. A recent record showing repeated exposure to the substance that had made Amara sick. The date was from after her wedding. Amara stared at Dante. He did this to me. Dante nodded. Victor realized I cared about you. Amara closed her eyes. For weeks, she had believed Dante was the person destroying her life. Now she understood. The real enemy had been standing inside his family. She wiped her tears. I won't run anymore. Dante looked at her. You don't have to fight this. Yes, I do. Her voice was steady. If Victor wants me gone, he'll have to face me. They prepared the evidence for release. Marcus secured the files. Elias prepared the medical proof. Dante arranged for everything to reach the authorities. For the first time, Amara felt she was choosing her own future. Then the lights suddenly went out. The house fell silent. Dante. No answer. A hand covered Amara's mouth. She struggled. A cloth pressed against her face. The last thing she saw was Victor standing in the doorway. He smiled. Let's see how far your husband will go to save you. When Amara opened her eyes again, she was tied to a chair. Victor stood before her. And somewhere nearby, Dante was walking straight into the trap. The underground laboratory was silent except for the hum of an old machine. Amara sat tied to a metal chair, her wrists burning against the rope. Victor stood beside a table covered with files, hard drives, and medical records. You should have left when you had the chance, he said. Amara lifted her eyes. I stopped being afraid of you. Victor smiled. Then the steel doors opened. Dante stepped inside. His face was calm, but his eyes carried a dangerous fury. Let her go. Victor raised his gun. You came alone? Dante looked around the room.
No.
Suddenly, the lights above the laboratory flickered. Marcus appeared on a security monitor. The evidence is already being transmitted. Victor's face changed. What did you do? Dante didn't move. I ended it. Victor grabbed Amara and pulled the gun toward her. You'll lose everything. Dante looked at Amara. I already have. His voice was quiet. My empire isn't worth her life. Victor stared at him in disbelief. Amara noticed a small control panel beside her chair. With trembling fingers, she reached toward it. She pressed the button. Screens across the laboratory came alive. Patient records appeared. Financial transfers. Medical reports. Names.
Dates.
Photographs. Everything Victor had tried to bury was now being sent to investigators. Dr. Elias's voice came through the speakers. The files are complete. Victor panicked. He shoved Amara aside and ran toward the exit. Marcus blocked his path. A struggle followed. Then the laboratory doors burst open. Police investigators rushed inside. Victor was forced to the ground and handcuffed. Amara watched as officers carried boxes of evidence from the room. Dante stood completely still. An investigator approached him. "Dante Moretti, you're under arrest." Dante slowly placed his hands behind his back. He did not resist. "I'll cooperate." Amara stared at him. For years, his power had protected him from everyone. Now he was giving it up himself. The investigation spread quickly. Victor and the men involved in the experiments were arrested. Evidence also connected them to Isabella's murder. Dante surrendered the records he had secretly collected for years. His accounts were frozen. His properties were seized. His empire disappeared almost overnight. But the businesses he had legally placed in Amara's name remained hers. He had protected her future even when he knew he might never be part of it. Months later, Amara sat alone in Dr. Elias's office. He placed the final medical report in front of her. She opened it slowly. Her eyes moved across the page. Then she began to cry. "The treatment worked," Elias said gently. Amara closed her eyes. She was alive. But one question remained. She looked toward the window. Dante was still awaiting judgment. And now she had to decide whether the man who had once imprisoned her heart deserved another chance. 2 years had passed since the night Dante Moretti lost everything. The courthouse was crowded when he walked inside. No expensive suit.
No armed guards.
No men waiting for his orders. Only a simple dark shirt and the weight of everything he had done. Because Dante had cooperated with investigators, his evidence helped expose other criminal networks connected to his father's organization. He still faced punishment, but his honesty had saved lives. When the judge finally delivered the sentence, Dante lowered his head. For the first time, he accepted his fate without using power to escape it. Outside the courthouse, Amara watched from a distance. Dante saw her. Neither spoke, but his eyes said everything. Months later, Amara stood inside a bright new medical center. Children sat with their families in clean waiting rooms. Doctors moved between patients. No one was asked for money before receiving treatment. A golden sign hung above the entrance. The Isabella Hope Foundation. Amara touched the sign gently. Dr. Elias smiled beside her. "You turned all of this into something beautiful." Amara looked through the glass doors. "I just wanted nobody else to suffer, because someone had power." Years of pain had not disappeared, but they no longer controlled her. Then one quiet afternoon, Dante was released. He arrived at the foundation alone. No black cars.
No bodyguards.
No empire. He stopped several feet away from Amara. "I didn't come to ask you to forget," he said. Amara looked at him. "I couldn't. I know." Dante lowered his eyes. "I only came to say thank you." "For what?" "For surviving me." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "You changed when you finally stopped trying to control everything." Dante looked at her. "I lost everything." "No," she whispered. "You lost the man you thought you had to be." For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. Then Amara stepped closer. She did not erase his past. She did not excuse it. She simply chose not to let it destroy their future. Dante reached for her hand. This time she gave it freely. Outside, children ran through the courtyard while their parents thanked the doctors. Amara looked at the building that had grown from the ashes of Dante's darkest secret. She had once entered his world as a frightened woman with no choice. Now she stood beside him because it was her choice. Dante squeezed her hand. "Are you happy?" Amara smiled through her tears. "For the first time, I am." They watched another family walk through the doors. The empire was gone. The secret was exposed. Justice had been served. And the woman who was once forced to survive Dante's darkness had become the reason that darkness would never return.